G'day guys, it's Michael here, and Christian, he's working remotely. Hey Christian, can you just do a quick sound check, mate?
Yeah, sure can. How's it going out there?
Oh, yeah, keep talking, keep talking.
Okay, test 1, 2, 7,
You
5.
guys, just let us know how loud it is, because I'm just looking at the volume levels. I think I'm pretty quiet, but at the same time, though, I'm looking at Christian and he's pretty loud. So, yeah. uh,
I can move my mic away
yeah, I
if
think
need
try
be.
try moving your mic away. You are gaining out pretty hard. So.
How about that?
Yeah, go again, go again.
Test 1.
Yeah, all right. I think that's good. G'day guys, it's Michael here with PowerShell 101 with Michael and Christian. I'm still sick, so that's the reason why last week I didn't really stream. Was actually I caught something from Tuesday, so yeah, I've been pretty unwell. And yeah, so I've been off, but we're back. Christian's working is remote because he's sick as well, but also particularly not sure if I've given him what I've got, and if he's given me what he's got. So hope you guys stick around. Today we're basically going to be continuing on our expedition in Azure Functions land, and basically just with that, obviously practical examples of what we're doing with PowerShell. So, Christian, how's study going, man? What's been happening apart from PowerShell 7?
Um, no, nothing much really. Coming up to the end of the semester, so we've only got 1 week left at TAFE
Hmm.
for the semester.
Yep.
We've finished off the server cluster assessment. That was interesting. Finally got Fedora working. We had we were using Fedora as the file server, and then when we went to show the teacher, it broke. So I had to go and fix it.
Did you with your file server cluster? The question is, did you sacrifice a goat to the demo gods? Because that's really where any change, any change that needs to be demoed needs to go through a rigorous sacrifice process, because it just makes me laugh, and I'm also cringe on the inside because I know how it feels. Yeah, keep going.
So yeah, there was that. We had the network infrastructure practical test.
Yep.
That was fun. We had to configure ERGRP for 3 servers. Not servers, sorry, routers.
Okay, tell me the commands. Go.
The commands, right. So you've got router ERGRP. We were
One sec,
using
one sec, one sec. Anthony, you also can help out. I want to see some commands in channel, because this is good revision. So carry on.
Well, Anthony was in my group, so
So he should know these.
he should indeed.
All right, pressure's on. How about we do this? Anthony, pressure's on. Let's see the commands. No cheating. Straight in the chat. Let's see them. Go. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Do we have any Jeopardy music?
I don't know, but that'd be from your end, not mine.
I thought it was EIGRP,
No.
not RIP.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's doing the other one.
Oh, he's in only RIP. Oh, mate. Oh, savage.
Yeah, for the whole assignment there was the router RIP as well, but this was just a test.
Yep. Oh, nothing's better than having to set foot in the Cisco CLI land. I had to do that the other day because I had to reconfigure my switch for a specific VLAN. I was sitting there going, I know this command. It's VLAN access set. I was like, VLAN access? I can't remember.
There you go. There's some commands for setting up routers and the like.
Enable secret class.
Yeah, that's the first. That's what you do if you're setting a password for enable.
When you mean enable secret, and class, is the
So
enable password class, or is that the actual?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So what they're doing for all the labs is our console or telnet passwords are always Cisco, and then our enable passwords are class. Just so everyone can sign in and out and help
Yeah,
each other.
you're not stuffing around trying to deal with it.
Exactly.
Yep. Oh, while we're waiting for that, what else has been happening?
No, that's actually pretty much it. I got
Mm-hmm.
to see the next semester guys. They were doing an exam today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on security for Cisco,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
right.
looked full on.
Mm.
So yeah, kind of looking forward to that.
Yep.
But I hear it's still going to be different for us anyway.
Yeah, second semester's a lot more interesting than first, I've always found. Like, second semester was a lot like, there was just a lot of stuffing around. Like, sorry, the first semester was a lot of stuffing around. The second semester was just not as much. You actually got to do some decent networking and doing things like that. So, while Anthony's recalling, because it's always good, um, what let's get stuck into it. We're going to go into whiteboarding. We're just basically going to get a bit of an overview of what we've done, what we need to do, and then basically go from there. I'm also going to quickly give you a quick rundown of what changes I've made,
Yep,
and then from that we can kind of move forward. So, the first thing is I'm just going to quickly change the scenes. So basically, what we've done, and you've obviously, I've got Christian's live sharing with Visual Studio Code. Um,
it is a great collaboration tool. If you
VS,
haven't had a look at it, look into it
yeah,
seriously.
VS Code's really good. It's got a lot of capacity to, well, it's just this insane amount of capacity. And obviously VS Live Share is just an awesome collaboration tool. So anyway, what we're gonna do is I'll just quickly take you through the two jobs. So we've got receive job and start job. So if we jump back into the whiteboard, I'll get you to jump back in the whiteboard.
Yep,
Um, Obviously, it's my terrible whiteboard, but it helps me visualize. When I do any sort of complex setup, especially when we're hooking on, we're having a multiple systems talking to each other, I usually try and whiteboard the process out. From a logical perspective, it just makes sense. It also helps you visualize, whether you're a visual person, whether you're an auditory person. I'm a bit of both, but nothing like actually writing something down helps cement concepts in your head, and it also helps you look for issues as well. So obviously we have on the right hand side here, we've got our get results post execution code. So that's those two PowerShell commandlets that we wrote, that basically send the jobs to the functions, and they basically create those database rows. We've created the two API endpoints. I'm just going to put a pen on here so we can see it. It's going to be just a highlighter. So this is the commands, the commandlets. Then we had our two API endpoints here. I'm just going to put it in a red pen. So this is the API endpoints, and our two functions are sitting in here. So one is a send, one is a receives. We're going to replicate that process on the other side. It's going to be fairly easy, but basically we're going to talk through the first part of that process. So the first, we got another two that we need to do. Same thing. Basically, the first one is a receive. So what we have is the service will poll the function asking for any updates, any news, and then the second one will be when the function completes a job, when the service completes a job, it'll send that job to Azure. So or it'll send the output back to that second function. So what that will do is that we basically then have we have our complete circle. Processes are now basically able to be sent and receive using Azure Functions as our medium in terms of for our code execution. So let's get stuck into it. So do you have any questions, Christian?
no, not at the moment. It's fairly straightforward so far.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're just going to undo all that, and we're just going to come down here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to have a bit of a chat about what I've done initially. So we'll just go through some of the code. There's some really cool functions that I need to clean up. So I'm actually just going to quickly clean this up now, and I'm going to explain to the Anthony as well why I'm doing what I'm doing. Anthony, you're probably not going to fully understand why. This is really where it comes to advanced PowerShell scripting. Christian, I don't expect him to learn right now, but it's always good to try and explain it to somebody And at the end of the day, though, you might learn something, you might not. So we'll try and teach something today about param blocks, but we'll see how we go. So if we have a look at our functions here, we've got a HTTP send job and receive job. I've rewrote invoke SQL query. I haven't updated the help menu yet. I'm going to do that probably when we're done, when I write all my testing and things like that. But what I've done is I've basically changed the code so that now it supports Azure databases, which is really important so that using Azure databases we can actually run our code properly. So I've taken a couple of changes, and I made a few changes within in there, and this is actually one of the really cool changes, is that .NET Core .NET 4.6 supports a class called the SQL Connection String Builder. So when you connect to an an MS SQL server, you have what we call a connection string. The connection string is basically it's a configuration string that basically tells the SQL client how to connect to the database. That can contain usernames and passwords, or it can say, hey, I want to use my identity, my Windows identity. But basically, it's a configuration that you send to that is used to connect to the server. It gives the server name, the database name, the whether it's SSL, with connection timeouts, things like that. You can put in here. So what I've done is I've actually changed it so that rather than actually having a manual string, which I previously had, it actually dynamically builds the string out based on the parameters provided. And so what we have here is that I've created an object, and this is actually something that um, I found quite interesting with .NET. This is one of the few times that .NET kind of, I won't say broke, but it kind of didn't really follow best practice when it came to actually doing something properly. And what I mean by that is, so, Christian, do you remember what an object is?
Oh, an object is a variable usually denoted by the $sign.
It's a yes and no, but yeah, we'll keep going with it. So, an object's basically a collection. It's like it's
Oh,
like
hang on, I do have notes on
it's an
this.
instantiated class. So basically, you've got a class which has like a blueprint. It's actually a physical representation of that blueprint. So in this instance, the class is SQL connection string builder, but we're actually creating the object. We're actually creating those specific attributes based on those properties and values and methods based off that class. So it's a physical representation. Um, the reason why I want to talk about this was because basically we talk about properties. I didn't really talk about keys within objects. You can specify keys, and I don't really talk about it because it's not really your level. It's generally that's pretty advanced stuff. One of the things with this specific object is that if you want to set a value, so and this is something that drove me absolutely bonkers with PowerShell. I could not work out why the life of me it wasn't working. And examples out online weren't actually really that helpful until I actually visited MSDN. Was that basically you have what we call you got your SQL connection string builder. You then can specify the what we call the key by denoting square brackets and then putting the key name within it. It's a different way of represent setting a key, but you can do it that way. What's really interesting is that's the way the Microsoft that's the way you're supposed to actually set your values. Now, if you actually look in PowerShell and you do a get member on it, so if I actually do a get member on, I'll just create this object in PowerShell right now. So if I'll just jump into integrated console, we'll just execute this. Actually, I might need to terminate that. We'll just execute that. We do a get member, not get markdown option. So that is actually really interesting. If we do a get member, you can see on the right hand side, you see that what we've got our property name, for example, count, and you see how count has a get. What that tells me is the property readable or is it writable or both? So in these instances, you can see, for example, where's integrated security? Oh, what's it called? There was one here that I think. Let's try user ID. Okay, you can see user ID, get and set. However, if I try and set it, it doesn't work. So it's actually the class is not really representing it correctly. So that's something that I found. The second thing that I found is note, for example, user ID. All right. So you got user ID, which is basically that's the property that denotes if you want to specify a manual username. And then you scroll down here and you notice for me to actually set the user ID, it's user space ID. So there's actual discrepancies between the two values. But that's fine. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to accept that until I get to the point where it comes down to which one was it? And I was lost my absolute mind on. Yeah, trust server certificate, multiple active result sets, and persist security info. So that breaks best practice that they've set by basically not denoting those values with spaces. So you basically are literally left guessing, trying to work out, is this the way that you're supposed to set this property? And then have to manually actually write the property out and set it. So yeah, that was actually something that really drove me absolutely nuts. But I got there in the end. I really, yeah. But anyway, so that's, yeah. So one of the things about parameters, I'm going to quickly fix this up, that I learned this week is, so within a parameter set, parameters, the parameter block is used to denote when you denote a function within PowerShell to give it advanced script or to give it functionality. So for example, if I said invoke SQL query, actually I might be able to just bring this straight into memory. It's got a wait debugger in it. That should be fine. It's not fine, but it'll allow me to at least execute it. You can see each of these parameters are denoted using this parameter block. And what we have inside these parameters is what we call parameter sets. And parameter sets basically denote different conditions that can be dictated based on the outcome of your parameters. So what I mean by that is, there's no, if I want to use what we call integrated security, that basically says, when I'm using integrated security, that basically says use my user ID that's in Windows. Don't manually put a username and password in. But let's say I put the user parameter in, the integrated security parameter will not be made available to the user because it's not required. So it gives you that functionality to be able to actually add and remove parameters so that the user only needs the parameters that they actually want to use. So rather than actually having a full set, you only get the set that pertains to your specific task. So one of the things that I've learned is what we call implicit versus, within in PowerShell you have implicit and versus explicit. So in PowerShell 3, which I learned this week, is that the mandatory attribute, which is this, is implicit. Well, actually, most of all this is implicit. So what that means is that unless so rather than me having to explicitly say it's true or false, if I say mandatory, I can actually just do this. I can actually just say mandatory value from pipeline, like so. If I just do that, it's implicitly true. However, if I don't include it within the parameter block, so let's say I just don't have it there, it means that the parameter is not mandatory. It means that it can be, so the user doesn't have to actually forcibly enter something. And the second thing is that it might, like if I remove value from pipeline, it just won't accept pipeline input for that specific configuration. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
cool.
you already explained this to me
Yeah,
earlier.
it's going to be
Thankfully.
more for Anthony. So, um, I don't expect you to understand it, Anthony. And the reason why is just because it is like this is quite advanced PowerShell that we are starting to step into. Like, you are looking at pretty much things that not many people, not even in my work, know how to use on a proper day-to-day basis. But it's something that it's always good to know. So what we're going to do is I'm going to clean all this up. So you can see I'm just going to do a find replace. Bam, just cleaned it all up. And then basically if it's mandatory is false, like so. And then I'm just going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to get rid of like that. And you can see I pretty much cleaned that up.
And you're going to do the same with value from pipeline from for the top
100%.
set?
Yep, 100%. So um, it's implicit. So we know we're accepting from value from pipeline. That's pretty much that. So, and you can see there, that's pretty much it. So it looks a lot more cleaner. And the thing is that the reason why we do this, Anthony, is because PowerShell, the biggest thing with PowerShell, and it comes down to just like when you actually understand PowerShell and get your head around it, it's all about making things easier for everyone to read and understand. There's no point me unless if it's there, I know it's been declared. For example, mandatory. If it's mandatory, I know it's mandatory. If it's not there, I know it's not mandatory. So it's just basically a better way of being. I actually think it's a way better way of declaring um, your code, because basically it comes down to what we call PowerShell switches. So in PowerShell, you have specific types of parameters called switches. A switch is basically it's like a light bulb. It's either there or it's not there. So if it's there, it's implicitly what we call booleanly if they're boolean true. If it's not there, it's implicitly false. Now within PowerShell, I can actually say to the switch, I can say this is my switch parameter name, and then I can say explicitly true or false. But most of the time, if you're not using it, you just don't use it. Like you're basically implicitly saying I'm false already. And this is how I'll show you how it does it within code. So you can see this is a switch, for example, integrated security. So we can go down to actually there's a bug right there I just saw. That needs to be fixed. So actually this is a bad one, but we actually use, for example, let's say you've got persist security info here. If you scroll down, you can actually see there's a property called isPresent, and it's just a Boolean value. And the only thing I need to know is, for example, with these specific values, it's either a true or false. There's no like, they're not, that's the only two conditions that property can be set with. Oh, sorry, that connection string value can be set with. So all I need to do is specify the isPresent. If it's present, it's true. If it's not, it's false. There's my two conditions. I'm done. So yeah, that's pretty much that. So let's keep cracking on. So we're actually going to create a new folder. Christian, you can start driving now because you are in control of this. So I'm going to get you to create a new folder.
Okay. Looking for where I go under the bot project.
Yeah, under bot project.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'll get you to copy HTTP trigger actually because it's a template.
Copy. Paste it inside the bot folder.
Inside bot folder or inside bot project.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're creating another function. So the way functions work, Azure Functions work, is that they use this really cool. They've basically got a parent. It's basically a configuration that loads when it runs. So it runs this configuration. That configuration loads, and then each of these subdirectories is treated as what we call a function. So they each have their own piece of code that gets executed. And then what the way functions works is it reads it and it sees them as their own little pieces. It reads the configuration of what type of function it is. Is it a HTTP? Is it service bus? Is it all these different types of types of inputs and outputs, and then it creates them. And then once that code gets executed, is based on those requirements. So once we've got HTTP trigger 1, we need to start thinking about how we're going to execute this. So we're basically going to be this function is the hey, do you have anything new for me function. So I'm going to let you name it. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to grab another drink of water.
Okay.
Alrighty. How'd you go?
I named it.
uh, which one is it? HTTP start job.
Request job.
Yeah.
Because you said we need to see what they've got. So request I figured would be the closest.
Is it an approved verb? I don't know. Is request an
What
approved verb? Give me 2 secs.
your term approved verb is beyond me. I'll be honest.
Yep. Ask for a resource or ask for a resource, ask for permissions. That is literally perfect. You've literally hit the perfect verb. So, um, so with PowerShell, everything is verb noun, verb prefix. It's always a prefix verb. So if you see a commandlet out there called like Core i9, I'm just looking randomly, or Minecraft or something like that, you basically ask them if it's an approved verb, because I can tell you right now, if it's a noun, it's not an approved verb. The second thing is really important is that approved verbs are always this follows a standard, so that it means that admins can intuitively work out exactly what the content of that product is, or that commandlet function is capable of doing. So, for example, invoke performs an action such as running a command or a method. A request is ask for a resource or ask for permissions. You know, a start initiates an operation. So they all have explicit. They're explicit in terms of what they're supposed to be used, and it also helps you to be able to identify if there's any sort of it helps you identify later down the line. It just makes it easy to remember. So when I see really like terrible scripts at work, I'm like, is that a approved verb? And then basically it goes back and then it comes back again, and I'm like, thank you. So I'm pretty brutal about that, actually. So don't feel bad. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. So I'm just gonna quickly take you guys through some bits and pieces. So this is actually one of the interesting things. This is what we call this is the Azure Functions cold start script. So what this basically does is when the function runs as what we call a cold start, so it's basically running for the first time, it'll run this code. And this is really cool because you can preload a whole bunch of code in here, and so when the function's running warm, you don't have to rerun this code. Um, by default, it connects to AZ, so it'll actually connect to your Azure subscription, which is really cool. It completely blew my mind away last time I did a stream where I actually natively, without any changes, I was using. I'll quickly show you this because I kind of got really excited, and I thought it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life. Um, so I needed to pass the password into Azure, or from Azure, Azure Key Vault into my function. I'm not storing any sort of passwords in the function. I'm only what's the word? Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, I just want to take the key and then put it in. And Azure Key Vault's really good, Christian, because what you can do is you can actually go and request it, the key. It'll come back to you as a secure string. So the password's coded as a secure string, and then I just pass it straight through. And that's used in ours to connect to our SQL database. So in our SQL database, you see how I've got the credentials parameter. Where is it? See, it's PS credentials, type PS
Yep.
credential. So if we come down here, that's what it accepts. So I can actually just pass it the credentials with a secure string, and it will do the rest. And that's so good. Like, it's so good. And what it does is it basically using a Marshall service, it actually brings it it converts it into plain text and then puts it in the connection string. So from it's completely transparent to the user. So it's just, yeah, I actually thought it was amazing. And the thing is that to get it, it was just so easy. So all I did was I just went get AZ key vault secret, vault name brispug bot demo, and then the dot secret value, which is a secure string, and that's it. I'm done. So it was actually like the key vault, Azure Key Vault is 100%. If you guys are not using it for your production code, or you want to have a look at it, I strongly recommend it. It's a really good product. And with Azure Functions, it just integrates with it. So why not? Like, you've got native integration with Azure, so you can connect to your tenant, and then you're good to go. Anyway, so that all aside, we're going back to our code. So we've got our, what are we working with? We're working with HTTP request jobs. So if we go to the requirements, that's just basically telling us what version of the module it is. I don't quote me on that. I actually need to go and do some more research into this because I actually have to do a Brispug talk. So I will plan to do actually research into all this and get a good understanding of how it all under the hood. And then finally we have our function.json file. So obviously we've got a JSON file. Hey mate, how you going? It's good to see you, mate.
Ah, he's back.
What time is it in Canada, mate? I was guessing it's going to be like 10 o'clock there. Core Bob's probably sleeping off his hangover. Oh, 11 p.m. Damn it, I was so close. Oh man, I think Core's gonna jump on. He's gonna be like, mate, I'm not hungover. Like, it was really good. It was a really good. It was actually a really, really good session. Corvov had a few drinks and he was doing some PowerShell debugging and it was really good fun. But basically, so yeah, with the function.json file, that declares how it's good for let me loosen up. What we're doing is we're just continuing with our PowerShell. Hang on one second, I'm gonna open this window a bit more. The computers are literally like making my room cook, and even though it's nice and warm and toasty, it's getting a little too warm. Um, we're basically continuing on with our Azure Functions and preview functions. What we're doing is we're writing our server-side connector. So to give a bit of clarity, we've basically got a bot project where what we can do is do remote code execution over the internet. So what we can do is send a we basically we've done all the client side work here, so we've done all this side. And what we can actually do is we're sending PowerShell up to an Azure function, which stores it in a database, encodes it as a JSON string, puts it in a database. Actually, is it JSON? No, it goes in as base64 JSON encoded. No, it's encoded as base64 and then it's serialized as JSON. Sends it to the service, and then basically using Azure Functions, we're going to have a C# service that can actually pull that PowerShell down, remote code execute it, and then send the output back up through Azure Functions. And then we can have another PowerShell script, which we've got here, which is able to retrieve the output. So if there's some sort of output that can be that'll be serialized back on the C# server side through Azure Functions, then yeah. What are you executing on targets? Yeah, so that's just going to be my local machines and things like that. I've got a couple of VMs ready to go, but at this point in time, we haven't even completed all the coding. We've basically completed the client side at the moment. All that's working, so we've got it storing in database. Oh, nearly didn't delete it. But basically, from a implementation point of view, we're actually writing the other two sides of that today. So we're actually writing the receive, and we're going to write the other send. I don't know what Christian's going to come up with it. I'll come up with the other two functions. So we're going to be writing the receive function today, and maybe hopefully starting on the other one, and then following that we've got the then off another stream, which I'm hoping to do Saturday or Friday night, probably Friday night my time. So you probably won't be able to catch it. Yeah, and that will I will finish the C# service. So, is Chris on? I don't think he is. Chris, if you are on, can you say g'day? I don't think you're on. It is pretty late though for you guys. So I don't know, like, because Chris is usually is US, and I think he's US, like he's US East West. So it's yeah, it must be. He might be. Most of you guys are almost asleep. Like usually at 11 o'clock, I'm asleep anyway. Anyway,
Ah, so am I, well
yeah,
and truly.
that's like sleep. Like I gotta be up at 5 for Bubs. So yeah. So basically we've got our bindings. Our bindings describe how what type of connector it is. So whether it's a function, whether it's a HTTP trigger, whether it's a service bus. I love service buses because slackers. Jeez, mate, have a baby, mate. Have a baby, and then like see how you go there. um, so with bindings, we have the auth level, so things like that. The auth level is the authorization level. I don't actually fully understand. It basically describes the permissions and what it's capable of accessing. I think that is capable of accessing Azure. I'm not entirely sure. Can't quote me on that. I need to do some more research. You've got that type HTTP trigger, so that's what I'm talking about. Service bus, things like that. This is the direction in. We know the name, which is just a request, and we've got our methods. So we've got a get and a post. So in this instance, what do you think we're going to need as in the request, Christian? Because this is really your project. So if we're doing a receive, what do you reckon we're going to need in the as a method?
That'll be the get.
Okay, you can.
If it's a receive or
Mhm,
you're requesting information,
mhm.
you'll need a get method.
Okay, I'll get you to throw that in there then. Like you can clean that up. You can read JSON now. You can read JSON, JSON, JSON,
Well, for that, wouldn't I just need to get rid of the post there?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
Anything else you're gonna do? Thank you. All right, let's keep going. So it's going to be a post. Oh, sorry, it's going to be a post. It's going to be a get because we're basically doing, in essence, a get. We're basically receiving data from Azure. So in this instance here, we're going to jump back onto our we've got our profile and then we've got our run.ps1. This is the actual function itself. So I want you, Christian, and I'm going to just sit here. You're driving. It's your party, your function. You're the one who's learning. I need you to nut me out the logic on what we're going to want to do. Oh,
Ah,
Christian, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Yep. I thought you meant I don't know why, but I thought you meant thingy from I thought you meant Gale from and I was like, I don't know why I thought Chris. Is there a Chris Gale? Now I'm literally like I don't know why I had a word association with Chris and Gale. No, well, even UK right now is pretty late. Oh, sorry, no, it's super early. It's about UK is about. Oh no, no, it's actually no, it'd be about 6 a.m. Personally, at 6 a.m., I'm watching Bob's Burgers with my daughter, but I could probably watch a PowerShell stream. The one person I actually haven't been able to catch, and it's one of my like, it's actually bugging me. I actually really want to go watch Chrissy's stream, um, but it's just like my schedule just doesn't line up. Because there's actually a couple of things I really want to do with DBA tools. Especially one of the things I found with I wrote at work, which I've really want to kind of actually integrate into DBA tools, is I wrote a function which compares to SQL views. Yeah, that's exactly right. She's on Belgium time. To compare to SQL views, so you can actually like I actually use it extensively at work. So I have a SQL view. We need to compare two database views, and basically, even though we're checking the rows, but checking the type, checking the value, and if you really want to, you can even go down and check the encoding if you really want to go that level. But because there's something that I've just really been like kind of I've got on the cards, but it's been like I've got a list of things I need to like stream and to do, but at the same time though I'm kind of like it just be really good to actually get her opinion and thought on it. It's just that I can never catch her. Like it's just so hard to catch her because of in Belgium time. Man, Belgium's like when we went to France. Was it last year? Went to France and DBA checks it all. No, no. Does that have that like that functionality? Like if it does, then it's like fantastic. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. But if it doesn't have that functionality, I'm just like this is something that I would use on a day to day. All right. If you need to ask questions, Christian, feel free to interrupt. I'm just meandering around.
No, you seem to be enjoying your chat.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
No, I'm just looking back over the previous scripts to see where else I did some pseudo code.
Yep.
Um, make sure I'm getting the right gist behind it.
Yep. That's fine. Pseudo like if you need to stop and ask questions, I don't have any issues with that at all. The more questions you ask them, the quicker you're going to get an answer. That's like pasta for your DBA checks. Interesting. I'll have a look. Give me 2 secs while you're doing that. I'm going to open up a private window. Is that part of the
Okay, so
Oh, it is part of DBA
verify.
tools. Let's have a look. Backups have been performed. Identity columns are not about the servers have been uploaded with data and cherry. Caution does not exist. Agent. Never use. Invoke DB check. SQL agent. Oh, this is actually really interesting. I'm gonna have to definitely check this out. Oh, it's got a lot of really good stuff. Maybe I should. If I set your desired configuration, there's beer. Power BI is awesome. It's SQL DBAs with a bears baby. Oh, 100%, 100%. I actually had a DBA the other day that it actually kind of frustrates me a little bit. Is that I was doing a check and they were just did a row count, and I'm thinking there is so much more than just a row count. Like if you got 1,000 rows, but you're guaranteeing on the fact that nothing has been added or deleted during that time. And oh god, that was the reason why I wrote this, because I was paranoid about the actual row values themselves. Database integrity checks have been performed and corruption doesn't exist. This space is not PG check. Set your desired configuration. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely going to check that out. That's going to be, yeah, because at the end of the day, though, if I can actually have that, that'll be fantastic. How are you going? Okay, so query server request the jobs, get the job, verify the job.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask, does the script also look at executing the job, or is that the HTTP start job file?
It will not. So remember, this is the function. So if you go back to your whiteboard, where basically you've got the service is querying this function saying, do you have anything new for me? So think about what does the service require as terms of input, and what does it require in terms of output?
Okay.
Does that make sense? So if we go back to, if you can watch the stream a bit. Oh, you can watch the stream. So we've got our service down here. Services down here. And then basically what we have is it's talking to our Azure function, all right? This is what you're
Yep.
writing here. I'm just going to highlight it in sparkly. You're basically working on this. So what you're trying to work out is within here, this database, database, now I've got databases on the mind. This service that's querying this function, what input values does it require? So it needs to query this function and it says, hey, do you have anything new for me? What are those things that it needs to provide to basically for the function to be able to actually provide data back? So what do you think that like that? that's going to be the first thing you need to think about. You pretty much got the logic mostly right. Now you actually need to think about your inputs and outputs. So your
Yeah,
input,
so in that case, you're talking about things like the GUID, the actual code itself, that sort of stuff.
well, that's exactly right. So what do you think the server's going to need to be able to, what's the server going to need? Um, because at the end of the day, it's saying, hey, do you have a job for me? I want to execute a job. And then basically this function is going to hand it a job based on certain requirements. Like I can tell you right now, but I just don't want to spoon feed you.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It'll need the computer name.
Yep. What else?
Um, uh, computer name, the GUID.
Does it need a GUID? This is the question.
Well, no, actually, because the GUID is set on the other side,
Exactly.
so
So
you'd be
what else should
drawing the GUID.
I
So
Alidia, you also chime in, mate. This is always good because like at the end of the day, though, the more people that chime in these kinds of situations, it actually helps everyone around. Um, so you've got the computer name. That's one. What else should you have?
there should be code.
That's but remember, we're doing a request. The
Well,
response will be a code if it has code. Does that make sense?
yeah, I'm just trying to remember on the other jobs what we set as the items. There it is.
Where are you?
I'm currently in the receive job part. So you got like command text, database name under the params
Actually, hang on.
block.
I'm just gonna get a live share and just follow you. If I can go
That
live.
was up there.
Okay, I'm just following you. Okay. So what are we requesting it to do? We're requesting, basically what we're requesting is, I'm computer. Do you have anything for me to run? So we're basically trying to work out what the function needs to be able to accurately get information for that specific, to get code, executable code for that specific computer.
Uh, no, I'm at a loss here.
That's fine. The only reason why I throw it out there is, well, yeah, exactly right. It's phoning home. It's calling in. Um, in terms of obviously more sophisticated setups, there would be a whole bunch of information that we would need. In this instance, I'm kind of thinking, well, we're just doing a demo. Like we obviously, if you really want to take this further, we can expand on it and upgrade the capacity of the product. But in this instance, I think the only thing we need is the computer name. Realistically, the better way to do it, and this is really comes down to, like, if you were going down the lines, this is the reason why Azure Functions is really good when you're running hybrid runbook workers. Um, the better way to do it wouldn't be relying on the computer name because you're relying on the fact. Well, that's exactly right. You got computer name, possibly credential. In this instance, we're just basically we're assuming we're just skipping all that extra security because we're just writing a basic product here. But you're right. If you wanted to connect to this API service, you'd basically have to connect using a credential. So what's that credential going to need? It's going to need a Java Web Token. So you need to be able to accept a JWT token, validate that token. Is it a valid token from for a specific UPN? If that's from that specific UPN, you're fine. Okay, great. Now that's your credentials done. You need to basically you wouldn't really use a computer name. You would use a generated GUID. Um, the way that whole process would work, though, Christian, would be the fact that the machine would need to be enrolled. So in this instance, the machine is online, and we're enrolling it by assuming the computer name. But in a practical sense, you would enroll that machine. You would actually run code to talk to, and it would be a separate process. Would actually say, okay, this is my unique ID. and that unique ID would correspond to that machine. So it actually wouldn't even be a machine name. It would just be this random ID or this random string of numbers or in letters. And that would be how it would basically identify. I would say, I'm this computer, this is my credential. Do you have anything for me? Another thing that you can do, and this is something that I was actually thinking about, is in terms of automation and really stepping up that extra level security, you can actually have end-to-end security. So let's say you're running a SaaS-based product. A SaaS product is what we call software as a service, Christian. So you're running a public cloud product like Azure Automation. A really cool piece of functionality that you can actually have is that basically even sitting on top of that, you could actually encode the end to end so that no one in the middle can actually see the actual code because it's all encoded and encrypted with its own separate keys. So if you actually wanted to talk to that machine, you would need to go to a key service, pull the actual key down, and then send your request to encode the key. Now, without that actual key, the data is literally impossible to read. And your key service could be your own computer, it could be literally hard-coded file, it could be a certificate, things like that. So it means
So
that
in that instance,
mm,
it's a bit like I think Kerberos would be the correct one, where you got that end-to-end talk where it uses the public key infrastructure to encrypt it.
yes and no. Yeah, but yeah, to an extent. It just means that it's really what you can do is you can basically enforce, you can enforce, in essence, a lack of, KMS key is a better way to describe it. It basically enforces an end-to-end security without the medium being able to actually decode the security. So, and that's really good for like your public key, not for your public key services. So for your, like, let's say if you're running it as a website, a commercial product, it means that basically you have two endpoints that can securely talk to each other without the worry of having anything else trying to kind of steal its data. They're sitting on the same database, but they're just encrypted with different keys. And because they're encrypted on the endpoints, not on the function themselves, so think of it as this: you'll never, 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 ever have issues there. Your password is never unencrypted to send. Well, that's exactly right as well. In those situations, in that you would never send a password over the internet. You would always be sending a token of some sort. So in this instance, you'd be using a JWT token. Is the current standard, and basically all it's just you request the token. You obviously you take on that identity. It'll issue an identity and a signed certificate, not a signed certificate, but a signed token, and then that token is your identity. And if you modify that token in any way, it's invalidated. If someone else tries to take it and validate it, change it, it invalidates it. So it's basically, g'day. All right. So what? Okay. So you've got query server requested jobs. You requires the computer name. You're getting the job. You're verifying the job. And you're going to obviously send the job back. The things that we're going to now, I want you to kind of start nutting out is I want you to expand on, let's expand on number 2 and number 3. So what do you think a verified job is going to entail and get job?
Well, the get job will be where you actually pull down the code. You'll
So you're going to be doing that SQL query. Yep.
yeah.
So what we can do is you just write like perform SQL query.
Would help if I could spell.
Yep.
Query.
Yeah. Okay, so you've performed your SQL query. So how are you going to validate that SQL query? Like what are we
That's the
validating?
word I was looking for. Validate. Thank you. Okay.
What characteristics are we validating? That's the next thing.
Um.
Sorry, I'm just getting comfortable here.
We'd need to validate.
And Alidia, you guys can chime in as well. Like this is always good for everyone. I'm not gonna really just give anyone the answers. It's always just good for everyone.
I do need
have
some suggestions here from the comments if that'd be helpful, if you'd be so kind. But aside from that,
So I'm going to give you a hint. A dealio. Is that how you say it? Adilio?
Yeah,
Okay.
Adelia.
Okay. My bad.
It.
Sorry, mate.
If you recall, I got it right the first attempt.
Yeah. I'm just bad at that. I'm really bad at names. So yes, I want guys to help you guys to jump in, provide comments. We're validating the job. So what are we validating? We're validating the SQL query. So what is that going to entail? I want you see, think of from it. This is really now. I want you to take your programming. I want you to take your programming hat off and put your SQL hat on. And I kind of want you to think about what are the possible outputs of the SQL query. Well, that's exactly right. Is
Oh,
the query valid? Um, let's assume the query is valid because and it's not vulnerable to SQL injection, which it is totally vulnerable to SQL injection. But in this instance, we're just bypassing that. Um,
uh,
but this, yeah,
so you saying is it actually valid SQL rather than just a corrupted version?
well, yeah, it could be like the computer name could have some sort of weird character within it that basically cause it. Um, yeah. So Adilio is basically giving you answers there. So does it return values as an error? That's actually really that's basically your.
Okay.
So I want you to start thinking about what kind of values is it going to return. This is now the question.
Oh,
So I want you to kind of put your DBA hat on. Do we need to open up SSMS and basically take a look at the database if that will help?
yes, that'd be good because I'm
Give me 2 secs. I'm gonna grab SSMS open.
I have very little contact with SQL.
That's fine. Like this is the reason why I'm trying it's really just good for you guys to kind of it's understanding how to program and solve logic issues is like writing code is second. Understanding logic flow is number one. Like if you can understand logic flow, then basically writing code is like, oh, look at that, save password. Mates don't let mates save passwords. Um, and SQL realistically, like I I learnt it back in the day. I didn't think I was going to do any sort of database work, and in my second job, I was managing the Queensland Valuations and Sales database, and I got very good at SQL because you get bored, and when you have to run what we call suppressions, which is basically suppressing data on databases, you actually have to do searching, and I had to write a lot of queries, and I got good at running SQL queries. A lot of it's out the window now, but it's still something that I can pick up. So just have a quick look at the tables. Admittedly, I don't actually like doing SQL work. It's something I have to do, but at the end of the day, though, I still recognize it as an incredibly valuable skill. Having SQL ability is really important. So, if you can see my screen, Christian,
Yep.
um, basically you can see that we've got a whole bunch of data that I've actually stuck in there. Some of it is great, some of it's not. This is the initial request. So let's say the computer name is Testo1. I'm Testo1. That's what I've submitted. So it's now doing a query saying, hey, do you have anything for Testo1? It's come back with these 5 rows. What are you going to do to validate? What other conditions could happen in that situation? So I want you to start thinking about. I'm going to get you started. All right. Multiple rows can come back. That's a fact. That is
Oh,
allowed.
yes. I remember we had to write a block for that.
Yep. So this really comes down to we're going to in this instance we're going to cater for the fact that somebody can issue multiple commands for it. which this is not going to be a one command, like one request, one command process. This basically is going to request a whole bunch of it, and it can take it down. It'll deserialize each row and then process those items and then send them back up. So so you can have multiple rows come back. You might have no rows come back. You might have an error. What else?
Multiple rows, no rows, errors.
Make sure you write it down. This is really important.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to, like, even if you're wrong, it's not about being wrong. It's about basically, I'm just like, if you need to correct something, at least if it's written down, you know where to go from. But if you're not written down and it's undocumented, then you're in the hurt locker. And what is undocumented code? It's bad code. Did you see Adelio? One of the, I can't remember who was it now. I'm gonna go try and find Discord. Let's see if I can find Discord. Where is it? Where's my Discord? Oh, it's on here. Where is it? There is a new community book that they're gonna write. It was actually really. I've put my hand up. I don't know if they're gonna let me write it, but one of the things I really want to write about, it's actually like, it's a hidden passion of mine. I don't like to do it, but within PowerShell, I do it because I think it's one of the most important things out there, and that's yeah, the PSCon Vol 2, yeah, that one. I wanted to, like, I didn't go, but I hope I get the opportunity to write it. I want to write 2 chapters on PowerShell commenting best practices, and this is just stories of like things that I've done that basically really help really help in terms of by the way, Christian, you can jump in at any time, mate. It really helped me in writing comments and understanding and really funny stories. I was actually going to write it really lightheartedly, and just write some really terrible PowerShell stories that I've seen, and some stories that why commenting is really good. Yeah, I've done 2 proposals. So I've done the commenting. So that's basically, like get help, that kind of commenting, stuff like that. Code commenting, using proper code commenting to be able to, allow future self to be able to understand what you've written, especially in complex situations. And then the other one was,
Oh, come
I
on.
don't know what it was now. I'm gonna have to go have a look. I think it was to do with, I had 2 pet peeves. One's commenting, and the second one, I think it's not documentation. I have to go have a look now. Give me 2 secs. I'm just going to quickly AFK me, so I can bring up my email, and then I'll just chuck it on the other screen, and then bring it back. Sorry, there we go. It was sent to my Gmail. Where was it?
I get the feeling there's got to be more than this.
Okay, so you got check there are no multiple inputs. Okay, we're accepting that there's multiple inputs.
Oh, wait, we are?
Yep. So if there's multiple rows coming back, we want that. The one thing that we probably want to check for is if there's something that's empty. We don't want that. Get rid of empty stuff. So you've already got that null. I'd say null or empty imports. Inputs. That's a really smart one, because at the end of the day, though, if someone just sends an empty block, there's no point trying to download it. I'm just going to send back an error. And the function can do that on behalf of the service, so the service doesn't have to deal with that. I'm trying to find this. Where did I do it?
I thought you had written some code to make it so that empty was equal to null.
That's in another project, but empty is not equal to null. Okay, yeah. So I wrote.
No, I do know that.
Yes, undocumented code. Sorry. So basically, yeah. So that was my first one, which is basically I said, in essence, lighthearted stories about commenting code, reading undocumented code, get help, tips and tricks that I've learned aid readability. From comment heading structure, regions, using comment blocks to show examples, get help, boilerplate code. This chapter will cover my biggest pet peeve, undocumented code. And it makes me laugh even still to now. I got some absolutely tragic stories. G'day, Ace. So what we're working on is a project that basically is similar. It's a very basic version of Azure automation with a hybrid runbook workers. What it's going to allow us to do is do remote code execution over the internet. So we've got using Azure Functions. I've got multiple functions set up so that basically it can send and receive encoded PowerShell, which will store in a database. And then we have another side which can request jobs, execute the job, and then send it back. So in essence, completing that full internet cycle. So we can actually have a service sitting out there in the wild, and we want to say, hey, I want to do a PS version table on that and find out what version it's on. Send the job, it'll come down, come back, and then action it. That's basically we've pretty much done all the client side work. Now we're just pretty much working on the service side. So what we're doing right now is Christian's kind of nutting out the pseudocode with regards to how to query the database from a service perspective. Man, it's really dark in here. Jeez. Sorry, I might need to turn the light on in a sec. Um, um, yeah, so from the service side, it will basically the service will query this function that Christian's working on. This function will basically go to the database, pull that PowerShell, and then I'll hand it over to the service for execution. So, and Christian's kind of just nutting out bits and pieces from a code perspective, what he needs to do to be able to do that. So, what I'm teaching Christian here is basically logic, understanding how to while we're using PowerShell, but being able to actually put a coding hat on and being able to get from point A to point B. So that's basically where we're at the moment. If you need to jump in, Christian, anytime, mate, just let me know.
I'm at a loss here. I mean, you got null or empty, and obviously erroneous inputs. And would there be an error if there were only one input? Well, yeah.
No, because basically, if whether it's one or whether it's many, we're going to process it as a single. We're going to process it as a collection in PowerShell. Sorry, I'm just turning the light on. I don't know if that's going to do much. I've got a really pathetic light. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to see if I can find my wife's camera light. Oh, found it. Has it got power? Okay, it's got power. Sorry, I'm just ill prepared for terrible light. Let's see if this works. I'm just gonna use my water bottle. So Mark Karras and Michael are the editors this long with Paul Kelly. Okay, cool. So we should actually I'm just really like at the end of the day though I really want to write I kind of want to write something because at the end of the day though like it's just really good to have. Is that better? Like, is there any light better? Like, I don't think it is.
No, not really.
Really? It didn't even do anything. Like, check this out. Okay, that's lit. Oh, there's a slight like a 0.1% difference.
Yeah, when you get it close enough. But aside from that,
all right,
not
I'm just
really.
leaving it turned off. Like the sun's literally just gone over the horizon. That's why it's getting quite dark. Anyway, yeah, sweet. So, all right. So let's just jump back into it. With regards to a validate job, so we've obviously validated it. Now we're going to actually send the job. So what we're going to do here, oh, yep, nice, Ansible, yep. Do you know Jordan, Jordan Boreen, Adelio? I've definitely got to get you in touch with him. He works at Red Hat and he works on the Ansible team. Very knowledgeable guy, like really knowledgeable guy. Yeah, he's like he did a PS session talk. I wish I live streamed it. And like it was all about PowerShell remoting. With using Windows remoting. and using SSH. And like when I mean it was a deep dive, it was a deep dive. Like Jordan actually went down into with the when he actually had we actually did a packet capture and we actually deserialized the XML that PowerShell was sending between so you can actually see it inside. It was really good. Like, and he actually's got a blog post. I'll see if I can find it because it was really good. Like, I, it's one of those things where you read it and like, yeah, it's just, it's a really, it's just when you read it and you just think like, even though I didn't need to learn it, it was just really good to understand of how the entire process worked under the hood. And I think he wrote something in Python for for Windows remoting or for PowerShell remoting. Anyway, it's really really cool. I'll see if I can find that. So while we're doing that, so yeah, you got multiple imports error. Yep. Send the job back. You could totally go down wormholes, 100%. It's really one of those processes that, like, one of those blog articles. I'll see if I can find it. Like, I'm gonna jump on the Slack channel and have a quick squiz. Give me 2 secs, Christian. I literally need to go and find it now because it was like it was really good. I'm gonna have to scroll back a bit because we literally there's a lot of chatter we have here. Yeah. Conditional, yeah. Where is your worst comes to worst? I'll have to ask him for it again. Like I don't want to have to because I know he linked it, and it was yeah. Where is he at? He works for Red Hat at Brisbane. That's what I remember. Like if Jordan you're on, let me know. Like you can send me a message. Like I know Jordan was on Friday night, so he might be he just might not be able to tune in to the stream until 5, which is about another 15 minutes. But yeah, Jordan's really like when it came to DSC, because he's obviously does a lot of Ansible. It was really quite. He was actually quite knowledgeable on it, which was really good. Um, oh no way, Brisbane. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I found it. I found it. I'm gonna grab the link because this is really good. And this is his. This is his PowerShell. This is him writing the thing for Python, and like that. Oh my gosh, it was really good. Like I can't rabbit on how much like I loved that post. That was a really excellent post. Anyway, so while you guys can digest that, and it's getting increasingly dark in here, I'm gonna quickly tweak that. Give me 2 seconds, and then we'll quickly sort Christian out.
Yeah. So by send the job back, do you mean send it back to the server? Or where are we sending it back to? Because we've gotten it. Have we executed it?
So no, so we're just getting the job. I was planning to submit a PS Power Hour to an Ansible too. Nice. Nice. I might actually do that. I might do that because documentation is something that I value so much. Like I value so much. Sorry. So remember, Christian, I want you to remember what's going on here in terms of like visualizing the process. So you've got we've got our service. Get you to go to
Yeah.
the whiteboard. It's easier to do on the whiteboard. You got your service here. Service is requesting data. It's going to the function that we're writing right now, and it's requesting that content. So this is the function here we're writing. We've got our service down here. I really am literally running out of colors. I'm just going to blank that out so it helps. So we've got our service down here. It's requesting to our Azure function, which is here. This is our Azure function. I'm going to mark it in red. That Azure function is hitting the database and it's basically going to hand the job to the service. And the service is doing the requesting, so all it needs to do is output the job. So it just needs to, in essence, do a write output. A little bit more complicated than that with an Azure function, but that's all it needs to do. So what you have here, if we go back to our code, you're basically querying the server for requested jobs. It requires the computer name. That's bang on. That's all we need to do right now. The second thing we
Yep.
need to do is get the job. So we're basically invoking our SQL query. We're now validating the job. So we're checking for if there's multiple inputs, if there's null or empty inputs, erroneous inputs, or no response. Perfect. Then we're sending that data down. That's it. So if we're going to need to send the data down, one of the things that we might want to do, for example, okay, so if there's for example, this is actually something that we need to kind of start thinking about. So I'm just gonna quickly take the reins for a little bit, so you can kind of this is a bit of
No,
project flow that we're
I
trying to do.
understand.
So we're going to invoke the SQL. We're going to SQL response. Okay, so our response is going to be inside. We're just going to call it table. Just call it. We're now going to basically review each of the items. We don't particularly want to. I don't want to do a giant where object filter. All I want to do is just basically I want to iterate through each of these, and this is the reason why. So each of these could be separate requests. So we're going to invalidate any request that's bad. So we're not treating it as a whole failure. What we're doing is we're taking the ones that are good and rejecting the ones that are bad. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So what we're going to do
So,
here,
well,
validate what we call it, validate the. So what we're going to do here is we're basically going to go. Don't quote me on the exact
terminology.
Don't quote me on the exact ones because I don't know the exact property name. I think it is .rows, but sorry, it's gonna just be row. My bad. And then basically do this. We don't want to output on a single one. What we want to do, Adelio, is basically combine them all into a single array and then output. And the reason why is because then basically we're filtering out all the trash, invalidating them by sending an error SQL query. Oh, sorry, by changing the status the status column. The status column in that specific row to error, invalidating that specific value so it's not going to get touched by anything. And then when the client queries it, it knows that it's an error. And then following that, basically the ones that are good, we will build up a collection of, yeah, exactly. Then basically we can send it down. So what we're doing here is we're going through each of the rows and we're going to actually then perform our test. So we're going to test for
Nice use of the C# comment.
Yeah, I've been writing C# lately, so that's why I'm writing C#. And I've been writing a lot of JavaScript lately too, and I've been failing hard at it. No response. What was no response? Fail fast.
As in,
nice. Doesn't need it. We don't need it. Get rid of it. So all we need to do here is we just need to do an if null or empty. Saying like how. Let me write this properly. So we can go if sorry, I'm just gonna apologize right now. My bub's next door. She's crying because she's getting changed. So if we got row dot blah, we're just gonna go row dot cli input cli XML. And what I'm going to do is use my favorite null tester. Yes, it does. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. It might, no, it won't accept a null, but it'll accept an empty. But I usually just do that as a force of habit. To be honest, I could just say string is empty, but that's just, yeah. So then basically, from that, we can then go, we're looking for erroneous inputs. So what we're going to be looking for there is, this is going to be a pain in the backside. We're actually going to write, there's an error here. Also then, we know that now the code is like legit. We're going to need to then attempt to deserialize. Oh, no, we're just passing it right through. We're not going to deserialize it. We don't even need to worry about erroneous. We can just test on that value. Because at the end of the day, though, is if it's null or empty, then bin it back. If it's anything else, that's fine. We're passing through. We're not going to deserialize it because the whole concept here is if we want to expand on it, I want to have the ability so that basically you have input and output. Oh, sorry, you have client and server being able to actually have a private key that's shared between them, whether it's certificate, whatever, and that private key basically can end-to-end encrypt the entire process. So the function is not capable of actually reading the input, or it's not capable of reading the output. It's only acting as a messenger. So basically errors there. So what we need, if it's null empty, does it create a row with a status? Well, yes, because that's my bad code. For the sake of this experiment, I'm kind of like, I would never like most of the times, yeah, I would write a lot of functionality, so it would never actually happen in the first place. But I never, ever assume that that's going to be the case. I always will assume that there's potential to be null. And the reason why is because it comes back to a story. I love telling stories where I wrote a PowerShell script which actually operates as a two-way sync between two, in essence, it was two S3 buckets in AWS. And basically there were two S3 buckets in different regions. One was in London, one was in Australia. They had a two-way sync between them, and this PowerShell script maintained a two-way sync between the file server and the S3 bucket on both endpoints. And basically the whole premise of it was it basically set tags on the files to maintain a two-way sync, and it worked perfectly well. But one of the things I had to cater for was the fact that if someone directly uploaded a file onto the S3 bucket, my log file actually said something like there was an explicit log entry in there in my log file, but it had to cater for the fact that if someone actually explicitly added a row to, for example, in this instance, to the SQL table and was intentionally trying to null it for whatever reason, we can then error it out and we don't have any sort of issues happening locally. It's the same kind of concept. It was just in my story. Basically, I had I had a guy basically upload an onto the S3 bucket, which then replicated between the two buckets. But then basically the scripts didn't actually have visibility of it. So when it went to download it, it actually treated it as an addition. And then things got very, very weird with the sync. So it really comes down to, in this instance, it enforces the fact that if there is some sort of weirdness happening up there, we can ensure that that's not going to break. Anyway, let's keep going. I really want to get this done. I want to at least get the pseudocode and get some code written, because at the end of the day, we're pretty much pseudocoding at the moment. So we're going to validate the job, and then we're going to send the job back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to need to send the job back. So the job back is going to basically just be, we're going to pretty much just send the job. So we're going to need to work out a hash table response. What do you think that's going to be?
Hash table response, you'll need the computer name. You'll need the actual code, so the input CLI XML. You'll need the GUID, and um, I'm missing an input. Computer name.
Have a look at the thing. You're pretty much bang on. You've actually hit a couple there that I even thought that I've missed. So
Oh well, computer name target, input CLI XML.
the only one you're really
The
gonna need, I reckon, like this, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. In this instance, the only thing we're gonna need, we don't need to know the status. We only need the CLI XML and the GUID. We need the GUIDs because basically when we send the job back, we need to know what we need to update with the new to actually update the output CLI XML column within that row. And we need that GUID because if we don't know what we're updating. So you're actually pretty much bang on, mate. Like, so what we need to send back, and this is what I would probably do. I'll probably do something like this. Like, you can do whatever you want, but this is what I'll probably do. Um, does I know group object has as hash table. What else has as hash table? Because my idea is, well, here's the question. If we're only filtering on one specific attribute, would it just be easier to use a where object? Because at the end of the day, though,
well, all you're really looking for there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you're just looking in the input CLI XML row, aren't you?
yeah. So this is my idea. Like, okay, hang on. This is my idea. This is just a change of code. This is what I'm thinking. If we're only filtering on one item, so let's say we know known responses, known good input. I'm just gonna call it that. I'm gonna go good input. Um, actually, Adelio is correct. Realistically, we can just it's not equal to.
Not equal to null or empty.
I'm just spitballing here. I think it's just string empty. I think it's just a type. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I'm literally just going on the seat of my pants at the moment. This is what I'm kind of thinking to simplify it and actually make it a little bit easier. I'm literally just kind of doing this at the moment. Wait, where is input is empty? Line 23.
Yeah, so you've said known good input
Oh yeah, sorry.
is
That's just. Oh yeah,
equal
yeah. I'll
to.
clean that up. Actually, we don't even need that. We don't even need the result of that. We just need to filter by that. So once we've done that, set blah. I'm just kind of humming here for a sec. Then we can go to GUID. I can't remember off the life of me what the values are, so I'm just kind of humming and hawing here at the moment.
By
Um,
values, do you mean the statuses?
I just oh no, it's just update the table. Is it set? Hang on, I need to go. No, we've got request. That's select. We're gonna create. Hey, Adelio, what's if I want to update a row, I'm not creating a row. It's set, isn't it? I think I need to go have a look. I think it's set. Is it update into? Yeah, because update into creates, no, insert into creates a row. Set. I just literally need to go and have a quick look at squeal. Set city. I'm actually going to do this right. Oh, really? Okay, cool. I'm quickly going to unfollow you, Christian.
That's fine. I've got you set to follow anyway.
Oh, okay, you're going to see me bouncing around like crazy. I'm actually going to write this legitimately. Yeah.
I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Um, that looks about right. Yeah, so what we can do there. Just going to take a quick shortcut. I'm like, I really want to get some of this done. I don't want to kind of just be pseudocoding all that, so I'm kind of gunning it a little bit here. So what I'm going to do is actually start to move some code around. Christian's still going to finish it. I'm just at least going to get all the bits and pieces in place, ready to roll. If it fails, it fails, and we'll try again on another round. Actually, I'm going to write an error.
I'm back.
No worries. I'm going to no, I'm not. I'm going to throw. If it encounters an SQL terminating error, I'm going to throw it. Or should I? No, I'm going to write a non-terminating error. Well, that's exactly right. I think I'm going to write a non-terminating error, and then basically continue on. That's fine. So I've just kind of crafted some bits and pieces in there for you, Christian. So that's basically validates the input. So we've got our our bad input. We've got our known good input. So
Yep.
all we need to do is I need to work out what can be. Can select be done as a hash table? Because it literally will mean I can. Well, do we even? We don't even need to. Like literally, we just don't even need to. The reason why I'm thinking that is I'm going to convert it straight to JSON. I don't even need to put it in a hashtag. I'm just going to put it straight as a JSON, known input, straight as JSON.
Isn't it already JSON?
No, it's coming back as an object. I'm thinking if I can basically convert it straight to JSON, we're good. Like we're fine. So the next thing would be basically after that would be if we convert it to JSON. I kind of want to serialize a job. I am going to do this. I don't know how this is going to play. No, this will be fine. This will be fine. This will be fine. This will be fine. So what I'm going to do here is, firstly, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it a hash table. I can make it a PS table when I'm just doing a hash table because it's easier. What do you guys think? I'm sitting on the fence, but I kind of do like it. So what I've done, Christian, I don't know if you can see on line 20 to 22. Basically, I've encapsulated the jobs, and the reason why I want to do that is because it gives me a property to work with. So when we're on the client side, excuse me, I can actually test on I can test on the output. And so rather than having a blank, if like let's say for example there was nothing to come back, rather than just having an empty object being sent back, at least have a property that I can test with on the server side. So that's the only reason
No,
why.
that makes sense. And on top of that, it also improves readability a bit.
I don't know, like of the things I'm kind of sitting on the fence. Like, what do you guys think? Like, Adelio, what do you think, mate? Like, I'm a little bit on the fence at the moment. Like, I like it. Like, I think like right now it makes sense. Like, I've done my compare. Um, it is still technically an it's still a collection right there. Um, it will then basically then be converted to JSON. Like I don't even need to put it as a hash table because at the end of the day though, we're going straight to JSON. So the response is completely fine. So there's nothing else that needs to be done. So the only thing that we need to do would basically be to put it inside here. So I think, yeah, exactly right. I think it's better when you just encapsulate and then capture every job. If there's nothing there, then it's fine. It's like it'll just be an empty object, and we can actually do a count on it on the C# side of things. Yep. All right. Sweet. We're gonna actually. I'm running out of time. I've probably got about half an hour left. So let's actually write this now. So what I'm gonna get you to do, Christian,
Yep.
is I'm gonna get you to unfollow me. And I'm gonna start putting stuff bits and pieces in. I'm gonna get you to start putting bits and pieces in. So I need boilerplate coding. So basically, I need all the initialization code, all that kind of stuff. I need, I don't want this invoke SQL. Actually, don't use that one. Use the one that we've cleaned up because I want to. Which one did we clean up? Which one did we clean up?
It was under
Start job.
yeah, must have been.
Adelia, you're gonna be proud of me. I cleaned up my mandatories, so they're like, I'm not being explicit. I'm now being implicit. I want you to use this SQL function,
Yep.
and because I'm super annoying, I want you to use, you can actually, to be honest, you can actually You might as well update these as well. But the focus that can be done after hours. The focus needs to be basically getting all this boilerplate code in place. So you know, the functions and things like that. I need all that in place, so then we can just start plugging code in, and then we should actually have at least a project completed, but not debugged. But that's not too bad. Yeah,
So
team explicit. Yeah.
you want the whole region for invoke SQL query?
Yes. All the entire region. That's basically a fun. If when you copy in code, always copy the region because it might have it always has additional content in it. So if
Yep.
there's documentation or anything like that, it goes with the region. So
And that's before the write to Azure Functions log stream?
um,
Back on the request job side, do you want me to paste it in directly below our Slido code?
below a pseudocode, yes. Start putting all your stuff in there. I'm gonna start doing all my bits and pieces here. For some reason I'm still following you, but that's okay. That is okay. I'm just gonna quickly unfollow you. No, apparently I'm not. Oh no, never mind. I'm not. It's just, yeah. No, don't worry about me. All right. So while you're doing that, I'm just gonna quickly smash this out. I need to focus. So we got HTTP response context, status code, status. So it says status code, status code. There's not going to be any errors, so it's only going to return an OK. The only time it's going to everything is going to be treated as non-terminating, so I'm just not going to even. I don't even need to worry about any sort of others. The only other time it's going to have other if what it will do is it will just return nothing, and then that's fine. So. I think I'm just going to return a status code of OK for everything. That's fine. Can biff all that. I need the body. I'm going to grab that from elsewhere. Convert to JSON. Don't need that. Don't need that. So what I need to do now is I need to plug my code in. So sorry if I'm scrolling all over the place. I'm just literally trying to find bits and pieces of code I need, and then I'm just going to be copying and pasting bits and pieces in. Let me keep the weight debugger there. That's fine. Get the parameter set name. I'm in the wrong spot. Oh shoot. Where is it? Start job. That's what I'm looking for here. Weight debugger. SQL connection builder. Don't need that. Main request body. Here we go. Create GUID. Don't need that. Pull this password. Declare response body. Validate input. Don't even need to validate input because it's. We'll need to validate an input. We can do that. That's fine. It actually will have a bad request. If it doesn't have an input, it will send a bad request. That's the only time.
You also need the else statement.
Yeah. I'm literally just going to
So
grab that
essentially
entire
all
piece.
that.
Yeah, I'm just going to grab the whole piece and then just adjust it.
Cool.
So we actually do need to have a bad input. So what we're going to do, this is request job.
Yeah.
I'm not. We don't actually need a body. We're going to just use the query parameter. So query URL. I don't think I validated it. Did I? I thought I did. can you also grab test object property, please, as well?
From start job.
Wherever it is. I think I need to update it. That because PowerShell calls got dictionary types in addition to hash tables. Just do this. This actually makes it easier. Do that. Under initialize. Did you have an initialize block?
I didn't create one.
That's fine. I'll just do one now. Done. So request query, object property request.query, or property GUID. We're just going to get computer name. That's actually a bit annoying. I'm like about to hit paste, and it, like you just paste something in, and it literally just went bang right
And
down.
this is why I don't use the right mouse button. I use Control C, Control V.
Oh man, I'm like just going nuts, and you're just like, next thing you know, about to hit Control V. Nah.
No, Control V would work because it pastes where your cursor is.
Yeah, but the thing is that like when you paste your code in, it just like everything just moves like down, and then my cursor is directly on your code.
Oh right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have sucked.
that would have really sucked.
But this is why they added Control Z or Control Z.
That's one thing that I don't know how they're going to validate that. I'm just going to say the computer name does not exist. Oh, the computer name. Return bad request. Blah blah blah. Yep. Get rid of that. Name. PowerShell password. Response body. Declare response body. Validate input. Don't need that. We don't need to validate it because we've already done it. So the only thing we need to do is actually invoke the SQL query, validate the response, push the response back. That's about it. There's actually going to be two SQL queries. First one's to actually enumerate, second one's actually to do things. So first, what we're going to need to do is go up to my sudo. We're going to deal with the response back.
So the SQL query and the test object property are both functions, yes?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to change that body marker then. There we go. And same with is it that one? Oh no, that's set up differently.
Sorry if I'm like not being chatty here. I'm just kind of really focusing, trying to get this done.
No, it's still good.
I really want to actually like. I've kind of been stuffing around a bit, so I'm kind of just need to put the pedal to the metal. Get this done. Requested jobs, good input. Requested jobs where? Requested jobs where? Yep. Message. Yep. Sweet. Good. All right. So next thing we need to focus on is the initial parameter set. So that's fine. I was worried about this variable, but the scope's local because it's within the for each object, so the scope will be within the for each object. Ooh. Variable scope within for each object. Outside for each is value within for each object referenceable once it's executed. I don't like. I think it is for each, but I'm thinking about for each object, because I'm thinking at the end of the day though, I'm going to play it safe. I'm just a little concerned that there might be some foul play happening there, but that's fine. Yes, recommendations always to use for each. The only reason why I'm using for each object is because I'm kind of a little bit, I'm not a little bit lazy. I just wanted to have in one single pipelineable object. But yes, for each object does incur a performance hit. I think the reason why it incurs a performance hit is because it actually has a lot more, like you actually have the begin, process, and end statements as well. So you can actually give it a begin statement where you can actually define a whole bunch of stuff with it for it to be executed within it, and then you can actually have an end statement as well. So they have their uses most of the time, but you're right. Like it really should be a for each. I'm just kind of, I'll probably write that later. I just kind of wanted it to be in one line. Yeah, exactly right. Computer name target. Why the hell did I call it computer name target? What a... Now I regret it. I'm still not 100%, hey, but I had a gastro bug a couple of weeks ago, and then Tuesday, then I got sick again, and it's just like I was not well. No, that's going to be computer name because that's input. So input.
Okay.
I'm just kind of like literally, I'm just running around at the moment trying to work out where what's needs to go where. So initialize code. So it'll just be request.query.computername. So it'll be this. Because we're taking the input from the request and the query.computername. So let's go through the code and let's quickly logically run this through. So parameters, input bindings. I'm just going to put that there because param blocks need to be, usings need to be number 1, parameter blocks need to be number 2. Lesson learned. So we got parameter blocks, invoke SQL query. Yep, we've got our new updated one. It's got wait debuggers in it. I need to debug it, so that's fine. Test object property. I did add this. I haven't had a chance to test it, so this will need to be debugged and updated on all my other functions. So when you're getting, what was I doing? I was getting something. Now I can't remember what it was. Oh yes, I was testing query key values with the query string. It will come in as a system.dictionary within the function, and I've never used it. Like I've always catered for either hash tables or PS objects. So this is a new one that I needed to cater for. So it's still not working, but I need to just kind of run a put a wait debugger in there and just suss that out. Okay, now we're initializing code, so we're testing object property. This is going to fail because I need to debug that, but that's not the point. We've got the logic in there. I know that's kind of thing, so I'm just going to put a quick to-do there. Next thing we need to do, so basically if there's an error, it's just going to throw an error. That's fine. We're going to pull the SQL password. That will work. That's fine. I've tested that. We're going to get the body of the HTML request. We don't need that. That can go. We're going to declare the response body. Yep, define that. We actually need to do this. We can declare the response body straight in there, so we don't even have to Oh, thanks, mate. Um, we have to I can just chuck it straight in there because we're converting it to a JSON, so that's fine. Um, Parameters, like from that, where computer name is that, remote bot database, connecting to that using my SQL password. Um, Following that, we've got our response body, so that basically is catering on the fact that there is a known response. It doesn't really matter because it'll still send a job. Um, it'll still send a job properties back, a jobs property back. But if it's empty, it's empty. That's fine. And it'll just send everything back, which is fine. I could, to be honest, I could actually just do I could just do a select with. Actually, I might just quickly do that now. I'm going to do a select with. I actually realized I've made one big boo-boo. So basically, we're doing a select with input call XML where remote code execution blah. But we need to also check for statuses in progress because if not, we're going to get everything. So I'm just going to quickly do this. And then I'm just going to copy that and paste that in. So that will only get us the items that have actually been placed in progress. There is another issue there, Christian, that we are probably going to need to work on. And I want you to have a bit of a think about this because I've just spotted this bug, and I want you to think about this logic. So you can tell me what you can like. This can be your homework. So we're catering on the fact that okay, we're getting the all the rows that basically have the status of in progress. Okay. So what happens if
Yep.
it's a long-running script? The C# service will asynchronously execute this. So what that means is that I might have a wait on it for like 2 minutes. If the code is going to run longer than 2 minutes, the second it'll run again. So basically, you have 2 lots of execution from the same line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I want you to have a bit of a think about how you're going to deal with that. That's going to be your homework. I know what I'm going to do, but I kind of just want you to have a deal with that. I'm just going to write a to-do for you. I'm not even going to try and spell asynchronously. So what we got there is parameters, good to go, sweet. We're now going to so we've executed it inside our nice try catch. Oh, I do not like that. Do not like this at all. I'd hate this is one of the things I hate more than anything. I hate nested try catches. I like it drives me absolutely bonkers. It's really difficult to keep track of, especially when you're nesting try catches and nesting try catches. So what I'm going to do there is we are just going to grab that, and I'm literally just going to stick it in its own try catch. So then we've got to do a bad response. That's fine. So you've obviously got your SQL parameters. We've got a bad response. You've got your known good input. So I'm just going to say no. What were we going to say? Validated response. So I'm just checking for an empty string. So basically, we're going to do a response body. From that, we're going to validate the bad input. Validate. I'm just going to clean up my grammar. So we're going to validate jobs that haven't been submitted correctly. We're going to do that by just checking for if it's equal to, and then basically do a for each object. Within that, basically, we're just going to declare a parameter set, which is just going to send an error back to that job, so it'll validate it. And then following that, we can then write that response to SQL. Finally, that's all done. And then that will send back. So we need to put a status code there as well. Just going to quickly do some extra code cleanup here. Let's log the error. Right arrow. If there's there's a problem receiving the PowerShell jobs. So I got that response body. Now I'm kind of like, this is the problem I hate with PowerShell design, is that like, I might just do this. I'm gonna need to have a think about this. Oh, what am I gonna need to do? So I'm kind of like just thinking about the design of it. So it's got a bad response there. We need to obviously fail it out. I could just fail it out there, to be honest. I might just do that. I'm just gonna fail it out, and then it just means everything else is inherently true. I don't like it, but to be honest, yeah, I think this is a better way to do it and just fail it out. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Initialize. Sorry, Christian, if I'm kind of blazing away here for a sec.
I'm just trying to follow along.
So writing an error, status, bad request, there was a problem receiving the job. Just do that, those are problems. Okay, so we've done that.
Instead of calling it, well, where are you getting the error message? Object error message.
So when you do a try catch, $_ is the error object that you've just caught. Yep. So basically, error message is a property of that object.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just logging it, writing a bad response. Validate response, convert to JSON, do that. Everything else is going to be associated with true. So what we can do here. I think that's it. So.
Question from Adelia.
Doesn't return boot you out the whole thing? Yes, it does. I want it to boot them out. The reason why is because this really comes down to, this is just kind of a design thing that I do with my code. So if I'm writing code, I try to basically write my code when I'm evaluating things. It's either going to evaluate the final line. I will try and write it to be, it'll return true. And basically, what I'm doing there is any sort of error, I'm just basically telling it to return false and terminate. And the reason why I'm doing that is because it's just a design thing that I do in terms of how I structure my scripts. Is that from a following perspective, I know that if I'm following the script and I know the script is going to any sort of terminating error will terminate, then I don't have to worry about handling anything down below here. So it just means from a readability point of view, for me, it's just that's something that I've done that makes it a little bit easier for me to understand. Other people are different. Like you can make it inherently false or inherently true. Other people, you can just put it however you want it. But for me, I usually structure my code so that basically, if it's a terminating error, I'll inherently make it false or inherently make it. I'll inherently, if it's an error, I'll basically say the script will be inherently true, and then basically any sort of errors will be failed out, so I don't have to kind of deal with anything. That's just something, yeah, I don't know. Like for me, it's just readability. Like that's how I like to write my scripts for readability, but it's really comes down to each their own. That's the only reason why I did it. Um, in this instance, yeah, if it works for you. Fred was explaining to me the other night that you should set your interrupting action first in functions. So Fred was explaining to me that the other night that you should set your interrupting action first in functions and loops. Exactly right. So yeah, you're exactly right. It comes down to it really just comes down to design of your code. One of the things, and this is something like, for example, um, like in a good example is with loops and things like that is people write like some like it some people might write a do loop. I'm just going to use this as an example. Just jump down the bottom here. Some people might write a do loop like this, blah, or some people actually write um, condition here. And it's actually really interesting though, because this is something that it really comes down to again with code. So for example, the first do loop on 451, what you're kind of saying there to the person is you actually want that code to be executed and the condition to be, so the code, whatever it is that's been passed, will be executed at least once. Whereas on the other side, you have the condition here, which is the do statement, where the code might not be executed because the condition is being evaluated to begin with. So, and you're exactly right. Like it comes down to how do you want to process it. And for me, I naturally I try and make my scripts inherently true and then basically fail out accordingly. But anyway, it's each to their own. That's pretty much it, guys, to be honest. The code is written, so I kind of just spent 20 minutes, 30 minutes and just smashed it out. But you can see here, so you got namespace system.net, invoke SQL query, which we've written. I've cleaned up my mandatories, got rid of them, and made it a bit made it implicit. Got all my SQL stuff. Test object property, we need to fix that. Initializes it, tests whether the computer name property exists. Gets my SQL password. SQL statement to do a lookup on in progress. Christian's going to work out how to deal with that because that's something that needs to work with. That they need to work with. We've got invoke SQL query to add to the database, so that's basically just going to, actually that is not true, I'm just going to get jobs, so I'm just kind of updating some commenting. So invoke the SQL query. This is one of the things I was talking about at Delio with headings. So one of the things I do with my code is that generally with a comment, I actually structure it with headings. So anything with like a hash, a double hash, like so, is like a H2 in the according to like HTML. So if it's a 3, so what I mean by that is if it's a 3 and it's something like this, it usually denotes it's something quite important. It's a summary. So it helps me even separate my code. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like Markdown. So it just helps me separate my code and make it a little bit more readable. So you're not like, even though you're not kind of sticking all your code together, and even if you have comments in that code, it at least helps you segment your code out into specific sections. A DBA in the house. Oh, mate. Everybody's a DBA. You just don't know it yet. I think that should be a shirt. you're a DBA, but you just don't know it. And one day you'll have to do a select query, and that one day, yep, that's it. You're a DBA. DBA for life. We got, we got a thing at work basically. Like me and Alex, my coworker Alex, we do not like saying we're like DBAs, but we got this saying where basically, yeah, it's just DBA for life. It's like hashtag DBA for life. DBA for life. Don't say that. Adelia is the sticker king. Sticker king for life. um, but anyway, so invoke the SQL query, basically capturing response if there's any sort of error, verifying, basically we're verifying the response. I'm actually going to H2 that. So I'm checking for empty string, nulls that are not allowed, invalidate any jobs that are extra. Following that, yeah, so we got request that for each object. So basically, if it fails out, it will send an error back. So that's for each of the rows. And then if it does fail there, it will just produce a non-terminating error. And it will just basically reprocess it when it happens again. And then the final thing is it'll just basically set the response body, and that's it. I think that's it. That's done. So, yeah. I think that's pretty much it for today, actually. Any questions or any
Well,
comments? Because Christian, you got questions?
no, no.
Okay.
I mean, after that rushing portion, I was just trying to follow.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, mate. I literally I wanted to get this done today, and I didn't want to kind of like puff around and wait till next week.
no, I
Um,
understand it. It's still good. I mean,
um,
I hope I picked up something from that.
yeah. So, for Shane and the guys that basically don't, that kind of joined a little bit after the fact, what we've been doing is it's basically a 101, PowerShell 101 with Michael and Christian. Christian's not here because I've been sick lately, and he's been sick now, so everyone's fully
By not
sick.
here, he means working remotely.
Yeah. So one of the things that basically we did was I took him through the basics of PowerShell, taught him all the bits and pieces of PowerShell, objects, things like that. Following that, basically the next process was I had a little mini project. This mini project is not commercially viable at the moment. We obviously can fix it up, make it commercially viable, but still not. And basically what it is, it's a remote execution PowerShell bot. So what you can do is you can remote execute PowerShell code over the internet, similar to an Azure Automation Hybrid Runbook worker. What that means is we basically have got using Azure Functions, we basically have the ability to send PowerShell. It'll the local commandlet will serialize the PowerShell, encode it as base64, send it up to the function. The function will accept it, stick it in a database, create a new row for it. It'll flick it back down then the service, which will run on any machine, can basically query it. If it queries for jobs that are destined for that itself, bring that code down, deserialize it, de-encode, deserialize it, and then basically execute the PowerShell, send it all back up, and then so that whole kind of runbook kind of approach. That's basically what we've been working on, and from an architectural point of view, we've pretty much completed the entire client side. So we've got the ability to send jobs and be able to query and receive jobs. So what we're doing now is the server side part, where we're actually writing the functions to be able to query to get those jobs and then hand it down. So in a separate stream, I'm actually going to write the C# service. I just don't have time at the moment. I'm probably going to do it on Friday night. I'm going to get that started. I've got a lot of code lying around for it, so I'm not starting from scratch. But basically, we're going to put it all in there, serialize it, and then send it up. One of the things I actually found, which is really cool, is, and this is something I've actually done this before, was one of the things on the C# side is that executing PowerShell is really interesting because there's a piece of code that, like, when you run PowerShell using C#, there's two ways you can do it. You either start PowerShell and then run the code, which is pretty dodgy, or you can use the PowerShell class. one of the things I found with PowerShell class is that it'll run the PowerShell and it treats it as a really really terrible script. So if you want to pass arguments and things like that into it, it's really annoying. So what I did was I wrote a piece of code that basically encapsulates your script, dynamically builds out. If you have parameter blocks, it'll basically read those parameter blocks and then add each of those values, and then basically once it's done that, it'll actually then add the line and call the code. So what it means is that you can then capture the output and serialize it correctly. So you're not serializing it as this big whopping jargon piece. You're actually serializing correct PowerShell output, and then I can capture that and then basically send it back. So yeah, exactly right. It actually assembles your arguments up. It's really really quite cool. And I've got the codes lying around somewhere. I've got to go find it, but it's something that I've actually really loved because it means that when you're serializing, deserializing, like the biggest thing I have with remote execution code, and this is one of the things, the reason why I want to use Azure Automation. Like Azure Automation has a perfect example of how an output should be, and that's actual. It should be PowerShell output. It should be a PS object, or it should be. The thing is that to send that over the internet, you need to be able to serialize it. And if you're serializing static text from a PowerShell session that you've invoked, that just is really dirty. So the better way to do it is actually, to actually write a function, invoke that function, and then bring it back. And it works perfectly. You can actually put massive scripts in there, and it'll basically encapsulate the whole thing. And then, yeah, it's really quite cool. So, um, let's leave it there for today, guys. If you've just joined in, sorry, mate, but we're going to be jumping off now. But I hope you guys had a really good time. And sorry about the lighting. Like, it starts off sunny, and then like we just get carried away. What
What
is a
can you do? It's
DVA?
winter.
What's a DVA? Uh, there's a there's a lot of names for DVA. Adelia, this is when you put your inappropriate hat on. We got this thing at work where when someone asks us a question, like, oh, well, when my coworker, he's like, oh, what's a what's this acronym? And I'll make up acronyms that are really inappropriate, and like he'll be like, oh, so like what's something something something, and I'll be like, oh, that's this, and he just like, god damn it. And like we always did we did like the biggest one we don't do is like obviously with Active Directory you have a DN name, a distinguished name, but we actually always say, we will always say distinguished name. We will never say DN name, in the slight case someone goes, oh, what's DN? And then when someone says DN, you go, these nuts. And so it gets really really inappropriate really quickly. But yeah, we love, yeah, that's one of the things we love doing at work. Me and Alex are really Alex Petrarch is really good with that. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. I hope you guys learnt a lot. Thanks, Christian, for joining us as well. I hope to see you next week, and we can basically actually be on site and do this again.
Yep. Well, once again, thanks to the audience for putting up with me.
Yeah, thanks to the audience as well. Thanks, guys, for following us along. That's really awesome for you guys. I hope you guys learned something. So it's always good to learn PowerShell. I think Wayne actually said it to you last week, and it's something really important.
It's about being a professional learner.
And that's exactly right. It's about being a professional learner. If you're not learning, you're stale, and basically you're gonna, eventually something's not, you're gonna fall behind. I did my PowerShell quiz on Pluralsight, and I got like 225, and I was like, you know what? When I did it initially, which was 2 years ago, I got about 205, and I thought, you know what? That's actually that's an excuse to go relearn some videos, go recover the fundamentals, and get better at PowerShell. Because if you're not learning, like if you can't be the best, or you can't be the best, but if you can't get good if you don't basically learn. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. I hope to see you guys next time. Sorry for it's quite a long stream, but anyway, yeah, I hope to see you guys next time, and all the best, and yeah, bye for now.
Catch you later.